And that movie, of course, now I've given away the end of the movie, but yeah, it's A Million Miles Away. It's on Amazon Prime. Best leadership movie I've seen this year.
Hey, welcome to the new season of Leading Simple. It's back. That's kind of how we began the podcast to begin with, was just talking about leadership stuff. And then it turned into more of just spiritual health and life on a daily lessons kind of basis. Well, now we're back with a new Leading Simple episode with one of our favorites, a guy by the name of Brian Dodd. Brian has an incredible blog that reaches probably hundreds of thousands of people every single week. That's called Brian Dodd on Leadership. And you're going to want to make sure you subscribe to that. It's fantastic. And he's been so kind as to come on the show multiple times. We talk about leadership. We talk about books that he's reading. And we definitely talk about movies and sports too. Hey, if you're new to the show, you might have not noticed this, but the swag on the table from our YouTube viewers that are watching is a little bit new. And so if you want to add some things to it, go ahead. I've got some of my favorites up here, from the Chiefs helmet to a Batmobile to one of my favorite Wheaties boxes with the championship Lakers on it from a few years ago, and Mr. Potato Head from a recent message. So I would love to have you add some stuff to the table. Send it to us at Crossroads Christian Church, Grand Prairie, Texas, and that would be care of Rusty George. Well, today we get to hear from Brian Dodd. We're dealing with leading and leading simple. Here we go, my conversation as we reboot Leading Simple. Brian Dodd, welcome back to the podcast. Let me see. I think this is maybe 4 or 5 times. It's becoming kind of an annual event to have you on.
Well, I tell you, it is always, number one, it's replenishing for me. I just love spending time with you and investing in your audience. And what I love about it is, number one, your interview style is just so relaxed. But we get to talk about all the things that we enjoy dealing with. Christianity, faith, leadership, sports, family. It's the when they listen to us talk, it would be just like if they went to lunch with us. So,
well, yeah, that's the goal. Like they pulled up a chair and we're buying,
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to jump right into this because you have such a breadth of knowledge in so many different areas. I want to talk about books. I want to talk about your 7 levels of leadership, and I want to talk about sports. But I want to start off with something because, we're recording this in the summer. You are a big movie buff in that you go to movies to look for leadership principles. I have not seen a lot of great movies this summer so far at the point of recording this. Is there anything good out there that you pulled away a few leadership nuggets?
It's interesting. I think Hollywood is trying to figure itself out post-COVID. The best leadership movie I've seen is actually on Amazon Prime, A Million Miles Away. The story about the first Latin American astronaut in space.
I've not heard of that.
That is the best leadership movie that I have seen recently, is that.
Okay.
There's a gap there right now. It's kind of a drought season for Hollywood, in my opinion. So.
Well, it really seems like it. At the time we're recording this, Despicable Me 4 is about to come out, which I'm sure will be entertaining. I don't know if we'll get a lot of leadership stuff from Gru, but I'm not seeing a lot of other things. Tell me about A Million Miles Away. What are some of the nuggets you pulled out of that? Because I'll have to go watch it now. Hey, feel like your devotional time's a little dry? Pick up a copy of Friend of God, out now, and we'll walk through the gospel and the letters and the revelation of John in 40 days. Guys, it's short enough, you can even read it. Trust me. So pick up a copy of Friend of God wherever books are sold, or to get it cheaper, go to PastorRustyGeorge.com. We'll send it right to you.
Well, I'd say it's probably about an hour and 40 minutes. I highly recommend it to everybody. The first thing I would say is the power of a vision that God gives a person's life. So he was the son of a picker out in California, working the fields, and God gave him a vision of going to space. And, of course, some teachers laughed at him. There was this one teacher that really poured into him and encouraged him on that. So number one is the power of vision at a young age. But here was the thing that struck me, too, about that story. He asked the question, for the people that get to go in space, what skills do they have? So he learned like Russian because he was going to be on the International Space Station, occupied with Russian, astronauts. He learned Russian. He learned scuba diving. He did a number of things to expand his skill set so that he could live out whatever his calling was going to be.
Wow.
And that was the thing that I got the most from it. Everybody that listens to your podcast, Rusty, it is a leadership podcast. So they want to do something great in their life, and they want to be a better leader. Well, none of us are finished products. So there are skills within that context and under that umbrella that we always need to be adding. And this movie paints that picture as well as any movie that you will ever see. Now, I will say this, the heartwarming part. That teacher, when he was in elementary school, that encouraged him and told him he could do it, they brought her back as a senior adult at the end of the movie. Oh. And he got to meet her.
Oh, that's so great.
So here's the thing, that when you pour your life into somebody else, there are times that I'll just use that phrase, we are planting seeds for trees that we will not get to experience their shade.
Right.
But sometimes we do. And that movie, of course, now I've given away the end of the movie, but it's A Million Miles Away. It's on Amazon Prime. Best leadership movie I've seen this year.
All right. So I want to get to books here in a minute, but let's start with 7 levels of leadership that you have written about. And I think that, boy, these are so great, these 7 that we're going to break down. But tell me where this came from. You write a lot about leadership. You have a great daily blog that comes out, Brian Dodd on Leadership. I want to direct everybody to that. But you also have, your roundup at the end of the week where you pull from other leaders and some of the blogs that they've shared and posts they've put out that you reshare, which is tremendously kind of you. But tell me about these 7 levels and kind of what you see there and where that came from.
Yeah, they say that all good things in this world are birthed out of pain. And these 7 levels were birthed out of pain. And I'm actually have 3 different books right now that I'm writing at various stages of development. And this 7 levels is one of them. So here's how it came to be. And Rusty, I felt so guilty because you even opened up introducing me that I bring pastors and church leaders encouragement. Okay. Well, that's when I'm in the spirit, and sometimes I'm in the flesh. And so I'm at this church, and the pastor stands up, and he had a tradition of honoring, pulling people on stage at every 5-year anniversary. So he brought like 5 or 6 of them up there, and he says, this person's been with me 5 years, and this person's been with me 10 years, and this person's been with me 15 years, and this person's been with me 20, and he named somebody else has been with me over 30 years, and then he made this statement. That's why our church is so strong. And Rusty, I'm sitting there, and I'm going, this church has been plateaued or declining for the last 10 years. This is not your strength. This is your lid.
Wow.
And I remember thinking that, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a book on the perils of experience. But then I got to thinking about it, and I was like, okay, people think experience is kind of the end. I think it's actually the 4th of 7 points. And we can break down any of these 7.
Okay. Let's walk them through.
All right. Number 1 is education. Okay, and they all start with E, so easy to remember. Number one's education. This is your training. Okay, this is going to school, learning your task, interning. I think you probably started out as a youth pastor, if I remember correctly. This is
for a brief time, yes.
This brief, well, me too. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the education. This is the learning of the craft. Okay. The thing you need to learn in this situation is this is all about training and this is about hard work. And like I said, we can unpack some of these, but number two is exposure. Now that you've been introduced into your various field, okay, this is about discovery. And there's a way that that exposure is good. And that's the development of young leaders, a process that a young leader goes through in their development. Or this could be the babysitter that tells people how to parent. Okay. All right. You're confusing exposure with experience. Okay. You don't. So those are two sides of that fence. But when I talk to young leaders, I always spend a little time on exposure. And I walk them through a 7-step process about how to move to the next level. Okay. And that next level is explaining. Explaining is a very good level. Okay. Even though it's number 3 out of 7, it's a good level. You know what you're doing and you can tell other people how to do it. For instance, if somebody were to say, and I was meeting with a church on Sunday and I got a question I get all the time, Brian, what makes a capital campaign fail? Why do you have a bad campaign? So I walked them through vision. Vision needs to be clear, crisp, and compelling. And I explained all that. Second, the project needs to be clearly defined and a catalyst for making the vision a reality. I then explained to them the difference between urgency and nice. Okay. The third thing is leadership.
Hang on. Yeah. I got to drill down on that one. Talk to me about the difference between urgency and nice.
Okay. Excellent question. Urgency and nice. 2008, the banking crisis, in my opinion, killed nice. And here's what I mean by that. It'd be nice to build a family life center. It'd be nice to pay off some debt. It'd be nice to launch a new campus or expand. People no longer sacrifice to nice, but if it's urgent, people will still sacrifice to urgent.
Interesting.
So when I'm explaining a project in relation to the vision. So the project could be anything I just said, debt, new campus, new building, renovations, expansion, anything like that. I explain, okay, for us to become the church God has called us to be and to reach our community and make an impact around the world like he's called us to do, it is urgent that this project or this facility facilitate that becoming a reality. People will still sacrifice to urgent. They no longer sacrifice to nice.
Okay. I think you cut out there for just a second. So I'm going to have you go back to when you said, for us to become the church God wants us to be. Just say that line again, because I have a feeling it was profound.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, got you.
Okay. All right. For us to become the church that God has called us to be, and for us to do the mission and vision that God has called us to do, it is urgent and it is vital that this building or paying off this debt for more money, for more ministry, that it facilitates the mission and vision becoming a reality.
That's fantastic. Okay.
So anyway, the third one is leadership. The fourth one is congregational trust. But the bottom line is I can explain my job. And if you've got a team of people who are versed enough that they can all talk about what they do, why they do it, the benefits of it, the pitfalls of it, explaining really is a good place to be. Okay. But there is a level above explaining, and that's experience. That means not only can they explain it, they've been doing it a long time. They got the pelts on the wall. They got the credentials. They got the reputation. They've got the network. They've been doing it a long time. Now, this is the most dangerous stage. Okay.
Interesting.
Because you're going to go up or down in experience. If you get assumptive in experience, that we know what we're doing, we've done this before, we've seen it all before. Okay, you're going to go through a downward 4-step process that I call you're going to go from experience to ego to error, because, the world is changing, okay, and you're being assumptive. Ego to error to excuses to extinction. Okay? Or you can have humility. And you can be Babe Ruth. Yesterday's home run does not win today's game. The world is changing very, very fast. I have to keep changing with it. What got me here won't keep me here. All these catchphrases, okay? But they're catchphrases for a reason. They're true. And if you have humility and have the attitude of continually learning, then you can move up to the 5th stage. Okay. Rusty, here's something I want to tell your readers that I've never talked about publicly. I've written sentences or two and paragraphs about it. In the world that I live in, which is serving churches, the sweet spot is about 45 to 55. Okay. You've got some experience, you've done some things, but you're young enough and fresh enough that people kind of listen to you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm 58. Rusty, I've been in this industry over 20 years. So I came up and I saw people age out. And so one of the reasons that I write every day, one of the reasons that I read is my wife does. Only my wife knows how hard I work to remain relevant. And I work very, now look, I'm not going to color my hair, grow a goatee, or shave my head or anything. I am what I am there. But mentally, I always, Forrest Gump, been there, done that. Okay, cute statement, very entertaining, very memorable. Horrible leadership philosophy. If you've been there, done that, you will age out. But if you're going there, doing that, and trying to come up, about a year ago, Rusty, I started a journal I did called I Want to Learn Something New Every Day. And every day I want to learn something new. And it could be from anywhere about anything. So I always try to do that. I always try to talk to younger people. I always read. But yes, I want to go to that next level, which is excellence.
So let me ask you this. I love this, learning something new every day, because I have noticed that now that I'm in my 50s, it's so much easier just to say, oh, I don't understand anything about that, or I don't do that well, or I don't get that, and just kind of rest upon, well, I'm older now, let the younger people figure that out. It sounds like this idea keeps you fighting against that. Is that right?
It does. Now, look, there's some places I don't go, like technology. I do the best I can. Okay. But a new leadership concept or learning a new idea or something of that nature. Like yesterday, I forgot the term because it's just 24 hours old. But there's a new interview technique that when you take somebody out to dinner, if they don't know how to order, they don't get the job. It's a decisiveness issue. Okay.
So if you're unable to decide on something on the menu, then you don't get the job.
That's one of those tripwires. Okay. So yesterday I learned a new interview technique. Okay. So it's just, it does, here's the thing. If you just compound that over 365 days, you've had a good year of personal growth.
Boy, that's brilliant.
So
good.
that's just what I learned yesterday. But here's the thing: in experience, you have to have humility.
Mm-hmm.
And then fifth level is excellence, and excellence is all about experience plus personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's excellence. You start heading into the sage territory at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The sixth level is elite. This is all about accomplishment. Even though he's 26 years old and Jaylen Brown's 27, they are obviously elite basketball players. They have won the championship. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they are elite. Elite is all about accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
But then here's the thing. Number 7 is essence. So, Rusty, I'm part of a weekly Bible study with high school, collegiate, and professional scouts and coaches. You've been on that before, and you should return, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So
I didn't know I was allowed.
What's that?
I didn't know I was allowed.
You are. You're allowed. You're Rusty George, for crying out loud. Many of them have been on your podcast. So
That's true. That's true.
We were on there one day, and there's a retired coach by the name of Rusty Strapp. He was at Gardner-Webb for many, many years, won conference, coach of the years. I mean, just a legend in the coaching, in the collegiate coaching industry. And he told the story. He said, the older I get, the more the wins and losses blend together. He goes, this past week, somebody I coached 20 years ago, him and his wife came to my office and they sat down and talked to me because they're having marital trouble. And he goes, and that was 20 years ago I coached him. And we were able to help them work through that process and get their marriage back on a good track. He goes, that meant more to me than any win I ever had.
Wow.
And he goes, when I look back over my career, I remember the bus rides. I remember the relationships. I remember, there's some hard losses and some hard wins, but they all blend together. He goes, it's the relationships. And I remember listening to him because I am so accomplishment minded,
Mm-hmm.
I remember listening to him and I go, that's the essence of leadership.
Let me interrupt for just a moment. Did you know we have a YouTube channel? In fact, all of our podcasts are now recorded and placed on YouTube as well. So everyone wanted to look at the person I'm talking to, now you can. Go to Pastor Rusty George on YouTube and subscribe. All right, back to our show. Wow.
The essence of leadership is love. You mentioned books earlier. There's a book out there called One Giant Win, written by Tom Coughlin. And it's the story of the Super Bowl team that beat the undefeated Patriots. So if you read that, you can get what you would want out of a football book. You could get strategy, you can get team building, you can get overcoming adversity, you can get all of those things. The last chapter, to me, Tom Coughlin's wife has ALS, and they live on a beach house, and every day he gets up and he gets her ready, and he rolls her out to her favorite window so she could look at the ocean, and he feeds her meals throughout the day. And he said, this is the greatest leadership I've ever done. And Tom Coughlin gets it. That's the essence of leadership. Here's a hot take, okay? You know who does not, in my opinion, and I don't know him personally, so it could have changed. Michael Jordan has never reached stage 7. Oh, he's elite. He's the GOAT, okay? But even at his Hall of Fame speech, he's letting people have it from high school.
Right.
And he never learned the essence of leadership. Now, he may have learned it since that Hall of Fame speech and things of that, but by all accounts, Michael Jordan never reached the ultimate level of leadership, in my opinion. So what started as an idea of a book because I was angry at a pastor for not being able to evaluate his environment and reality. Luckily, God sanctified that thought, and I've built out that 7-step process about going from education to essence. And that's my 7-step process of leadership.
Brian, is this in a book yet? Is it out? Can people get it? Is it a blog? Where can we find this?
I might have written a blog about it once, but it is one of the 3 books currently under construction. So,
well, I don't know the other 2, but I think you ought to put those on the back burner and just finish this one, because this is fantastic.
You know what I need to do, Rusty? I need to speak on it at some, church that has their own production and in-house publishing department and just say, I'm going to talk for 30 or 40 minutes, and then you just put it together. And
hey, AI can do all that for you now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I've spent
a lot of time on that, Rusty. I mean, where I'm at on that process, I think just by age, I've hit experience, chronologically I got there. Maybe there's some excellence, and in my industry, maybe there's even a little elite, but it's going to be the lives that you touch. Oh, I do want to share this, and I'm going on a monologue. I apologize.
No, it's just great.
I think I've started the process of heading to essence, and I'm going to be very vulnerable and share a story publicly I've never shared publicly before. Okay. I've talked to people privately about it. In the year of 1999, I was real unhappy at my job, and they were unhappy with me. I mean, it was a mutual unhappiness. Okay. And if I would have left, they would have thanked me and hit the door, okay, and I own all of that, by the way, okay, I own all of it. But yeah, I mean, I was not happy. And Rusty, I've done some work with you on smaller levels with Enjoy Stewardship, and I've been doing this 22 years now, okay. So I've been in my industry a long time. And in my industry, praise the Lord, I developed a decent name. But I'll never forget it. It was February 7th, 2020. And the reason I remember that's my birthday. Okay. So it's easy to remember. I got invited because I love John Maxwell. And he had just written a book called The Leader's Greatest Return. And in summary, the leader's greatest return is all the fruit you begin to experience because of all the people you've invested in. Okay. So I've just summarized 220 pages into a sentence. Okay.
He'd be so thankful.
But I got invited to the videotaping of the video coaching course that was going to accompany the book. And they invite me because I love Dr. Maxwell and I smile and I take notes. So they put me in the little bowl where the TV camera is, because if they ever flash to me, I'll be taking notes. So, I mean, you want those people. But here's the thing. Me and Sonia went to that, my wife, and I remember driving home, and Rusty, I remember God telling me, Brian, you're 54 years old. If you're lucky, and I bless you, maybe 5 to 10 years left. But I've invested all of this in you. If you don't start investing in the next generation, everything that's been deposited into your life will die when you retire or leave this earth, whichever come first. And I made a decision that day, and I didn't tell anybody, because the last thing you want is, okay, every time he reads a book or goes to a conference, everything's changing. You don't want to give your team whiplash, okay? But I remember that I made a decision that day that I will spend the rest of my career pouring into the next generation. All the people in their 20s, who probably would prefer that I moved out of the way and cleared space for them, and I get that. And look, I love them to death. But yeah, everything I've got, I'm pouring into them. I'm not telling anybody. And interestingly, 1 month later is when the nation shut down. So it was good timing on that aspect. But Rusty, I have remained faithful to that. And for the last 4 years, I have poured. Now, I don't just show up and go, hey, let me drop some knowledge on you, but if they ask me a question or they open a door, I freely share everything. Rusty, over the last 4 years, because I've done that, as successful as I was up until that point, I've experienced the greatest success in my career the last 2 years. And I love the young people being under the age of 40, that tells you how old I am. Okay. I love the young people in our company, how smart they are. I love cheering them on. I love when they ask me something to, critique them on something, that I always pull out their strengths and, okay, now look, if you keep doing this, here's how that's going to end up. And, oh yeah, don't forget, you probably need to work on this too. But Rusty, the last 4 years, I've been doing this 22 years, the last 4 years, particularly the last two, have been the best years of leadership I've ever had. And one other thing, church related, my wife retired. We had our first grandbaby. So my wife retired to take care of our grandbaby. And so, when she retired from that church, it's just hard to keep going there. We started going to Mike Lynch's church. And of course, Mike. I mean, Mike's just the greatest. I love Mike. So, how are you going to serve? And I'm like, okay, I want to invest in leaders. That's what I want to do. But what does that look like? And I honestly thought Mike would have me do regular staff meetings. Well, that never happened. But one day, me and my wife got a call from our college pastor. And our college ministry is just exploding. We're same city as Kennesaw State University. We run over 270 college kids a week, just great, great college ministry. He goes, our leaders in the college ministry have asked for some older people to mentor them. Would you and Sonia be interested? She take a group of girls, you take a group of guys. Last year, we spent the whole year investing and mentoring the kids that were assigned to us. And Rusty, I'm hoping I'm headed towards that essence level, but I'm having more fun now doing leadership investment in the next generation than any time I've ever had in my life.
That's amazing. Well, Brian, as one who has benefited from your investing, I'd say you hit the essence side a long time ago, but thank you for that. I appreciate you sharing that story. I think that's going to hit a lot of people, because I think many of us are in that stage where we're wondering, what is next, and how do we kind of wrap this up in a way that's God honoring and fulfilling as well. I want to ask you about one of your passions, and one of mine is reading. And there's a lot of great material out there, and some stuff you get a little bit into and you think, this really isn't worth my time. You've already mentioned a great book by Tom Coughlin, and I didn't know about that one, so I'm anxious to read that. Is there anything else you're reading right now? I just picked up Leadership and Self-Deception. I'd never read that before. Boy, that has been really, really good. Anything on your nightstand that you think, boy, your listeners have definitely got to read this?
Okay. You blanked out on me a little bit. I think you're asking me probably, is there anything good out there? And we can edit out this little section.
Okay.
I'm actually just read, it's by Paul Rabil, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Rabil. He's the greatest lacrosse player who's ever played, and he started the U.S. Lacrosse League.
Okay.
It's called The Way of a Champion. Fantastic book. I would highly recommend that to anybody in leadership.
Really? Even if you don't know a thing about lacrosse?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's the interesting thing. He doesn't talk about the sport a lot. He'll talk about, hey, in this game, this happened, and here's what I learned through preparation, or, learn from defeat or something of that nature. I think your readers are smart enough that okay, he lost in lacrosse, I lost a sales presentation, or I lost an account, or
Right.
something of that nature. I just started David Novak's book, Questions Leaders Ask. So just started that. That's pretty good. I'm reading John MacArthur's The Gospel According to Jesus. I hope I'm still saved at the end of the book, because the bar for salvation in John MacArthur's book is up there. So, but I'm reading that and I'm loving that. Just finished Louis Giglio's book, Don't Give the Enemy a Seat at Your Table. That's a fantastic book. So, I'll tell you a funny thing, Rusty. I'm kind of on and you mentioned it earlier, you get into these books and they're not good. For years, I went to Christian conferences, and I don't know if you experienced this. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, you'd go to like Catalyst or the Global Leadership Summit, and you'd be going, this and that was 3 days of greatness, Well, you do that for a few years, and then you'd go, there was this one speaker that was really good. And then you go, after a few years, I got one idea that I think I can use. And there was this kind of downward, I guess, losing the awe of the event type of thing, or maybe you've just heard it so many times. If I'm not careful, Rusty, I'm hitting that with books. I'm like, okay, that was a great book, okay, that was a good chapter. Okay, I got one good idea out of this. And if I'm not careful, I'm getting there with books. Now, I'm not going to stop.
Right.
But
it is definitely true. The more I read, the more I can quickly figure out, is this worth reading? And there becomes less great stuff out there. I can peruse Barnes and Noble and figure out pretty quickly what is worth my time and what isn't. But you're right. It's not as exciting as it might have been in the early days, because you're being able to see that a lot of it's a lot of retread or Captain Obvious kind of statements.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I write leadership books, and I write a leadership website. So the challenge becomes reframing concepts and ideas we already know. After the Bible and John Maxwell's 21 irrefutable laws, there really isn't any other books need to be written. And I've written 4 of them, with 3 more in the hopper. Okay. But
I've never heard those 2 books put side by side like that, but you may be right there.
Yes. I probably elevating 20. I said I'm a Maxwell man. I probably elevated that a little higher than I should have. But anyway.
Well, what's funny is he's probably written 50 books since that book. So he feels like there's still what needs to be said.
All right. Well, this is where I'm now. They're all tentacles and branches off the 21 laws.
You're exactly right. Right.
I mean, so, and good for him that he's gotten that kind of life, so I just, what I'm loving from a leadership perspective right now, Rusty, I am mesmerized by European soccer.
Oh my goodness.
I am mesmerized.
Tell me why, because it looks like track with a ball.
Okay. The level of passion, maniacal passion, that they have for that sport and what's required to lead and perform at that level of pressure is awe-inspiring to me. I still don't know what's offsides and what isn't. I have no idea.
No one does. No one knows when the game's over either.
Yeah, but like if you're watching the European, Federation tournament right now, UFC, the level of passion those nations have for their national team is it's college football-ish, it's Dallas Cowboy-ish, it's the Philadelphia Phillies in October baseball. It is that level all the time. And so anyway, reading about guys like Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola and Carlos Ancelotti, Mikel Arteta, these type of people, I am loving reading leadership about European soccer at this point. So,
well, that's
I probably
great.
just lost your entire audience, but that's okay.
No, they like it more than I do, but I just Ted Lasso and Welcome to Wrexham, it kind of helped me get interested, but I'm not so sure. But I agree. It is it's a cultural phenomenon as far as where your culture is. Having traveled to Europe recently, I saw it through a little bit of a different lens for their passion for it and excitement for it. I did not go to a game or a match, as they would say, but I certainly understand it a little bit better. Okay, let's shift to the real football.
Okay.
Give me some intriguing storylines, either college or pro, that we should be looking for in this upcoming season.
College, the transfer portal, I got to get my arms around it. I'm trying to find the long-term benefit of the transfer portal. Because we are losing competitiveness, perseverance, getting better, long-term development. Those are things I'm concerned about. There would be no Tom Brady in the transfer portal era.
Mm-hmm.
He would have transferred to San Diego State, or Utah State or somewhere like that, Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to get my arms around that. Also, high school recruiting. There's an interesting phenomenon going on. I'm great friends with the head of all athletic directors for Cobb County Schools, which is a suburb of Atlanta. And he goes, the 3-star athlete and the low 4-star athlete are not getting Power 5 opportunities. Why get that developmental prospect when I can go to Michigan State and get a junior offensive lineman?
Gotcha.
Who's already acclimated to college, who's already been in the weight training program for 2 years, all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting thing. So I'm getting my arms around college football. I think Kalen DeBoer is going to be better than most people think. The Deion Sanders thing at Colorado, I do not see it ending well. But here's the thing. How are we going to frame success? Because Deion's saying, you think with his bravado, they're winning a national championship, okay? But they did improve their wins by 400% last year, 1 win to 4.
Right.
And their enrollment skyrocketed.
And the economy of Boulder was up like $1 billion or something as a result.
Yeah, so how do we want to measure success? So I think college football this year is a 2-horse race, Ohio State and Georgia, and we'll just see how it plays out. I think the college football playoff's an incredible idea, unbelievable idea. I think it's going to be wonderful. Pro football, can anybody beat Patrick Mahomes?
No, only Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and I as much as that team changes, I never thought they could win a Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill, and they won 2 of them.
Right.
So there's that. And Rusty, I know you're there. I am praying for absolute Armageddon with the Dallas Cowboys, and then Bill Belichick rides in on the white horse. I am praying for that.
I am kind of hoping for that as well. I think that, and I don't know why. I really thought he would have ended up in Philadelphia last year or in the offseason. And I thought maybe the Cowboys, but they chose to each run it back. But Belichick and Jerry Jones, boy, that just seems like a perfect fit.
It's
What could go wrong?
Just get him his win, so he's the all-time winningest coach. But you're right. I think Philadelphia, from a cultural perspective, is the better fit, and Nick Sirianni may not make it, so we'll see.
Right.
But yeah, there is just so little difference between success and failure in the NFL for the most part, unless you're the Carolina Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
But like in our area, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Houston, there's not a lot of difference between those teams. And if Trevor Lawrence has a good year, there's no reason they can't go the AFC Championship, or they could miss the playoffs.
Right. You're right. It's a very thin line for a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
And a lot of careers hang in the balance.
So, but anyway, I'm very interested. For me, it's just, can anybody knock off Mahomes? Can Joe Burrow stay healthy with his hand or other body parts?
Right. Will Josh Allen implode again?
Can he catch a break?
What's Harbaugh going to do in San Diego? Could be, or not San Diego anymore, Los Angeles.
Oh, I will tell you this, though. Next year, 2025 NFL, I'm all in on the Chargers.
I think that would be about the right amount of time. And after the Chiefs win the third in a row, I wonder what they'll have left to play for. I mean, Kelsey may be married and touring around the world with his wife. It may just be the time that people start kind of letting up. A little bit like after Jordan's three-peat, he decides to go play baseball. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be, look, almost every team has an intriguing storyline.
Right. And that's why we watch. We love it.
Now, we'll have to do this because this deserves its own podcast. But the Falcons selecting Michael Penix. I live here in Atlanta. That deserves its own podcast.
It really does, because that was a head scratcher for everybody. I was all in on them getting Kirk Cousins, who I love. But then to pick Penix as his heir apparent before his tenure's even begun is fascinating to me. So we'll see if they know what they're doing.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Well, Brian, as always, this is amazing. I love hanging out with you. Love just hearing from your wisdom. And for everybody out there, Brian Dodd on Leadership, and that's BrianDodd on leadership.com is the best place to get stuff from Brian. Sign up for his daily email. It's fantastic. Gives you blogs, content, movie reviews, book reviews. And it's just incredible. Brian, I love you, buddy. Thank you for all you've done for me and so many others.
All right, I love you too, my friend. Great hanging out. Can't wait to visit number 5. So
that's right. Thanks, buddy.
How would Jesus live his life if he were me? If he was a writer and a grad school professor and a spiritual director and a mom and a neighbor and all that, how would Jesus live his life if he were me?
Hey, thanks, Brian Dodd. Always great to have him on the show. Great stuff. Make sure you check out Brian Dodd on Leadership, and that's DODD for Dodd. Next week, we're back with brand new content from Simple Faith. Great conversation with a new friend named Kirk Freeman, who's written an incredible book on growing in your spiritual formation. You're going to want to make sure you check out that. Easiest way to do that is just subscribe to the podcast, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, and then whatever comes out from the Simple universe, whether it's Leading Simple or Simple Faith, it'll go directly to your inbox and you'll be able to watch it or listen to it. And speaking of watching it, hey, send us some stuff to fill up the table. A coffee mug, a favorite piece of memorabilia, preferably sports. We're not accepting anything from the Celtics, or let's see, who else do we not enjoy? Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Frazier heading more
The Philadelphia Phillies or New York Yankees, just not going to do it. I can't. I just get, no, and actually the Duke Blue Devils as well. Don't send it that way. Hey, listen, you can send that to Crossroads Christian Church, which is 6450 on State Highway 360. A lot of numbers there, but it'll work. Also open your high school locker. And that's in Grand Prairie, Texas. Send it our way, Crossroads Christian Church, care of Rusty George. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Simple Faith.